and lots of other stories as Conservative MP for Bracknell, and also a former British Army Colonel. That's James Sunderland. Good morning to you, James.
Hi, Julia. How are you?
Very well. Thanks very much for joining us. I do want to talk about the Rwanda plan as well, but I just want to ask your reaction. Actually, I don't know if you got to see our interview with the family members, the loved ones of 3 of the Israeli hostages being held by Hamas. They've been in London this week to meet with the Prime Minister, the Foreign Secretary, and others to try to get them to put pressure on Qatar to basically pressure Hamas to release more of the hostages amid concerns about the conditions they're in. This, of course, as we see more US and UK airstrikes against the Houthi rebels. Just your reaction to what is going on in the Middle East and where we are heading, really, James?
Well, it's a massively complex problem. We know what happened on the 7th of October. I've seen some of the film from that day. It will stay with me for the rest of my life. Barbaric. But equally, the Israelis are determined to maintain security in that part of the world. They're determined to remove Hamas from Gaza and to create an environment that is safe for Israeli people. Clearly, you could argue with the comments yesterday from Netanyahu, but this is a very difficult situation, and my heart goes out to everybody affected still by the death and destruction, and of course the families of those who are held in Gaza. But no ceasefire can be possible for as long as Hamas is holding hostages. And that's been the position of the British government and the Americans right from the day one.
It is interesting, in every other field, we always say we would not negotiate with terrorists, we would never give in to terrorists, and then people are on the streets constantly calling for people to basically give in to terrorists, aren't they? Let's talk about the terrorists of the Houthi rebels, though. Second set of airstrikes by the US and the UK. We're told, again, targeted. We're told this is a proportionate response to these attacks on commercial shipping in the Red Sea. There seems to be a bit of a row brewing over whether or not the Prime Minister on this occasion, previously he did inform Sir Keir Starmer, the Labour leader, in advance, or whether he informed the Speaker of the House of Commons. Number 10 claimed they did. It was understood Labour say they didn't. Do we have any more information on this? And does it really matter? I mean, no one ever thought this was just going to be a one-off set of airstrikes if the Houthis continued.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know the answer, but what I would say to you is that the Prime Minister, the MOD, were quite right in bringing Keir Starmer in and other key stakeholders in before the initial airstrikes. The Prime Minister does not need permission of Keir Starmer to launch military action. That's power that he holds as the Prime Minister. He will wield that when he needs to. And it's entirely the right thing to do to launch these strikes on the Houthi. What's interesting, Julia, right now is that there's been lots of carping from the sidelines from all sorts of commentators, but both front benches at the moment seem pretty much aligned in terms of the approach to Gaza, and both front benches are aligned in terms of the airstrikes on the Houthi. So actually, this is about responsible politicians making responsible decisions for the good and safety of those who live in our interconnected world.
Yeah, it was interesting, of course, with Labour rebels and I think the SNP and others are rather more critical, as you would normally expect, the usual suspects. Let's talk about the usual suspects when it comes to Rwanda, Bill. We've got the Rwanda plan, we've got the Rwanda bill, we've got the Rwanda treaty. Now, we've got the bill for the safety of Rwanda bill to try and get this through and cope with the deal with the Supreme Court decision on whether or not Rwanda was a safe country to send channel migrants to for asylum processing and to remain there in the event of winning asylum for the UK. That bill finally got through the House of Commons, quite a lot of rebellions. Now in the House of Lords, that's coming up in the next couple of months. But we've got a little bit of an indication of where the Lords are on this issue last night. It's not a binding vote, and it was on the Rwanda Treaty. This is the deal with Rwanda in terms of not being able to sort of send people off to their home territory if they could face a bad treatment or imprisonment, and to guarantee the safety of people in Rwanda. But that Rwanda treaty was put to a vote, a motion by the House of Lords last night, and the Lords voted 214 to 171 to delay that immigration policy. They say they need to have more assurances from the Rwandan government. Does that suggest to you that the peers are going to be making quite a lot of trouble for the government when it comes to the Rwanda bill in terms of getting that legislation through? And if they do, basically throw in a load of amendments, vote it down, it ping-pongs back to the House of Commons, ping-pongs back again, what chance is there of flights leaving for Rwanda anytime this year?
Well, let's be absolutely clear. I mean, this Rwanda bill has had a huge amount of hard work and effort put behind it. This has had the weight of government, some very clever lawyers, lots of good politicians getting behind it, lots of negotiations, a huge amount of work. And it is the will of the people that the House of Commons last week passed the Rwanda bill. It's gone to the House of Lords. Now, The House of Lords has a very important role in scrutinising, in advising. It's an important chamber, and we fiddle with that at our peril. But the House of Lords is not an elected chamber, and for the House of Lords to block the will of the people would be really unprecedented. And I would urge the House of Lords to be very, very clear on what you seek to do. It is the will of the people that the Rwanda bill comes into law. It is the will of the people that the Rwanda plan takes effect, to act as a deterrent to disincentivise those who are coming across on small boats. So what's really, really important is that the House of Lords does not get in the way, as the Prime Minister made clear last week.
Yeah, well, indeed, we shall wait and see. I have a feeling we're going to be talking about this ad nauseum. And then if a plane load does ever go off, it's still not going to make a difference. It's not going to be a deterrent because it won't be enough people. Let's also talk about the culture wars. Just finally, the culture wars have reared their ugly heads again. We're constantly told by Labour in a speech by Keir Starmer yesterday that it's front page of all the papers today, that it's a Tory stoking up the culture wars, and he's defending institutions like National Trust and the Royal National Lifeboat Institute and others for doing great work and being under attack from Tories trying to stir up dissent and anger. And yet today we see yet more culture wars where I don't even approve of this, the gender pay gap legislation that requires companies over a certain size to basically report on the pay of whether you're a man or a woman and what your pay is in a particular company, that they've been advised by the government, by the civil service, the government don't appear to be able to control, that that should be reported based on the gender someone identifies as opposed to their biological sex. Now, the only reason there is a gender pay gap such that it exists is for women once they've had a kid, because you go off and have a baby and you often take maternity leave. Well, since a trans woman can't have a baby because they're a man and remain a man no matter what they call themselves or whatever certificate they've got, that's irrelevant. Are we not fighting these culture wars on a daily basis? But we're fighting against almost our own government on this. So who's right and who's wrong?
I think, Julia, we spend far too much time discussing culture wars. My personal view as a politician, I'm a serious politician, is that I'm here to serve those I represent. It's about cost of living. It's about the Rwanda plan. It's about getting things done in terms of government policy that make a difference to people in the course of their daily lives. But what I would say to you is that it's interesting, isn't it, that we're being lectured on culture wars by a man who continually votes against the government on any measure to curb immigration. This is a guy who has been voting against the government in terms of protest. This is a guy who supports Extinction and Rebellion. This is a guy who takes the knee. So I won't be taking lectures from Keir Starmer about culture wars. I'm a Brit. I'm a proud Brit. I believe in our institutions. I believe what's good about the UK. I have no intention at all of being an apologist for what may and what happened in the past. We need to get real. This is about today. This is about looking after British people and moving on.
Thank you very much indeed, James.